Okay, I think we can get started. Andrew, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Can you turn on your camera?
Sure.
Great. We have a few more people rolling in, but I think we can get started. There's people rolling in now. That's fine. Hello, everyone online, and welcome. My name is Weej Mudge. I am coming to you from Vermont. On the line with us, we have my brother, Andrew Mudge. Andrew has made this beautiful movie that I hope many of you took advantage to see over the last few days, this movie, The Forgotten Kingdom. And he has graciously given us some of his time to answer questions about the movie, how it was made, and how it could be used to raise awareness on issues in Lesotho, where the movie takes place. But first, I'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes about the Lesotho Connection, or as we call it, the TLC. The Lesotho Connection is an organization dedicated to supporting and assisting projects in Mahalieshoek, a region in southern Lesotho in southern Africa. It serves as the principal support for the St. Camilla Center, a home for orphans and vulnerable children. Through its partnership with St. Camilla's, the Lesotho Connection provides education resources, medical equipment, scholarships, and a wide array of support to community projects. Many of us on the board at the TLC were former Peace Corps volunteers in Lesotho. And I'm really happy to be here tonight because many years ago, I was the first Peace Corps volunteer at the St. Camilla Center. And it's really incredible to see how much the center has changed. As many of you have seen in this film, Lesotho was and very much continues to be deeply affected by the HIV/AIDS pandemic that ravaged and ravages Southern Africa. This pandemic continues to exacerbate problems tied to extreme poverty in Lesotho. And what's worse, progress made in combating HIV/AIDS and helping the families it has broken up or the orphans it's left behind have in many ways been negated by the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. Lesotho has been hit very hard by COVID-19 when it was already on the ropes after this HIV/AIDS pandemic. St. Camilla started in 2002, and the TLC was started in Washington State in 2006. As its network expanded across the US, it has provided critical support to thousands of children in Mahalieshoek, but there is still a lot of work to do. The important work of the Lesotho Connection can only be done with support and help from its donors. All of us on the board here at the States are volunteers, and 100% of any donation you make will go directly to supporting projects around Mahalieshoek. And of course, the Lesotho Connection is a 501c3. We know that COVID has changed the stakes for everyone, and there are many calls for support around the world. But we do hope that you will take time to consider a donation to the TLC. Donations can be made via our website, the Lesotho Connection, all one word, .org. And there you're going to find an online auction that's due to expire in just a couple hours. This is new territory for us, doing this all via Zoom and online, and it's been really exciting. Of course, you can also find our address and checks can be made, written out and sent via the mail. To those of you who have already given, a big thank you, a big kealeboha from all of us here at the Lesotho Connection. We set out with an ambitious goal of $30,000 for this fundraiser, and I'm really happy to say that we've already passed 20,000. So we're 2/3 of the way there. And if anyone here on the call has not given and is considering to do it, please do so. With that, I would like to introduce my brother, Andrew Mudge. He is a filmmaker based in Boston. He has been making movies basically his entire life. He's made films and projects for well-known organizations like National Geographic, Outside Magazine. He's also made these independent films like The Forgotten Kingdom. He's just wrapped up a movie that he's making in Massachusetts called The Wound Wood, which is a psychological thriller. But to stay on the Forgotten Kingdom, just very briefly, this movie won over 15 festival awards. It was nominated for 7 awards at the African Academy Awards, of which it won 3, including the Best Child Actor category for Lebo Hong, who plays the herd boy in the film. But really, I think one of the biggest highlight in terms of sort of post-movie productions was in 2014, Andrew, with a lot of the crew that worked on the movie, actually did a road show in which they showed the Forgotten Kingdom all around the country. And it was, while I wasn't participating in it, virtually it was an incredible event. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, Andrew, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we have a lot of questions for you, my brother, and some of them are rolling in. But I think the first one, which we've had a couple people ask already, is why did you, being from Massachusetts, why did you decide to make a movie in Lesotho?
Well, because my little brother was a Peace Corps volunteer in Mohale's Hoke, and I went to visit him. And it was a time in my life where I was living in Los Angeles, and I had a movie deal for a film that at a studio that never happened, and I was miserable in kind of the cog of the movie world. And I absolutely loved my trip to visit Weej in Lesotho. And I think at some point a seed was planted that said, someday, I want to come and I would love to come make a movie here. I think at that point there really hadn't ever been like any film made there. And then a few years later, I sort of, with the support of Weej and a few other of his Peace Corps friends, I sort of put together a story and did a lot of reading and a lot of researching and a lot of talking to you, Weej, about ideas. And a few of your Peace Corps friends, I would just call you guys all the time and say, what about this? What about this? And then I did, I did a series of trips where in the end of the day, I probably spent almost 2 years living there in little chunks, researching and kind of developing the story.
Was granted that you got to visit this unique country, but was there anything about Lesotho itself that really stuck with you, that really grabbed you and said, even though you don't speak the language and you're learning about the culture, you had to make a movie there? Were there any particulars of the country?
Well, it reminded me of kind of the Old West, like the horses, traveling on horseback, and people on horses wrapped in blankets and thatched huts, smoke wisping up into the mountains. And, it just reminded me of, it just had a sort of very lyrical, mystical quality, I felt, and still do, in the music and I love the people. I thought it was the first African country I'd ever been to. I've been to, 8 or maybe 7 or 8 more, but still it's my favorite country in Africa. I just think there's something magical about the land and about the people. And it just, and I think some other films have risen up and have also tapped into that too. And it's a very special, as you all know, it's an incredibly special place.
Yeah. I can say, as someone who also continues to work in Africa, and I'm actually heading back on Thursday, I can say it's absolutely my favorite place, one of my favorite places in the world. We've got a question here from Adam Henry. Adam, thanks for sending that. Adam says the actors are fantastic. How did you cast them?
So that's a good question. Our original goal was to cast everyone from Lesotho. And we did castings all over Maseru, the biggest ones. And then we did castings in Mahotla, all over the country. We really did this tour, but mostly looking for the boy, because as we started casting in Lesotho, we really realized that we were going to have the main characters from South Africa, professional actors from Johannesburg. A lot of them who are super connected to Lesotho, like Jerry Mofokeng, who grew up, spent some of his childhood in Lesotho. But the leads were not, Masutu. But that's the thing of film. That's the thing of, it's a skill that takes a lot of years of development. And in Johannesburg, people are trained in that. And so with the boy, though, with several of the actors, of course, the boy we found in Maseru at a school right near the border of Florida, I think the name of that little part of town is, on the way near the embassy. And we saw hundreds of kids, and he had something. He had never acted before. I'm proud that he's continued his acting. He finished up at National University of Lesotho in Roma a couple of years back, and he's now worked on a TV show in South Africa. And I love that him and a few others have really gotten into acting from that. And there were several others supporting roles that were non-actors that I cast mostly around Maseru. There's a wonderful old woman in the film, this old lady at the thatched hut, and she was a maid at Maseru's son at the hotel, and she was walking by and saw the crowds of people that were coming to our open auditions, and she decided to come in, and she had something special. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
so I didn't know that. That's great.
You always find, you always find these gems.
So for the boy, did you do open casting calls across the country, or in Maseru, the capital?
Yeah, we actually, in hindsight, we spent a lot of time across the country. Samankong, Ramabanta, Mahotlong, I don't think we made Takacha's Neck, but we got halfway, Mahale's Hoke, a bunch of places. We had kind of people that would try to gather kids together, and we even stopped by schools. We even actually, I can't believe that we did this, but we would sort of drive into a school and show up and introduce ourselves to the principal. 30 minutes later at the soccer pitch, they have 20 kids to look at, and we would do improv games. Of course, we would just do like, all right, all in Sesotho, of course, but I had translators with me, and we would sort of improvise a scene, and you can tell right away someone who has a natural ability to be expressive and to emotive, and then you work with that person.
That's fantastic. A question here from Sam, and I'm just staying on the actors. I see some other questions, and I'll try my best to get to them all. But just on this issue of the actors, there's a question saying, what are the actors doing now? Have you stayed in touch with them since the films ended?
Yeah, they are. I've stayed in touch with all the main actors. There's the Lebohang and Sonny. He's the boy who played, sort of the nameless herd boy. I think he's in Joburg. He's on a TV show called Malamu. If you all remember what a Malamu,
the stick.
There's a show called Malamu.
Just for the folks listening, Malamu is the stick that a herd boy carries, and it was the herd boy in the film, the nameless herd boy played by Lebohang, was carrying a stick often in the film.
And he's doing something. I'm not sure where he lives, but he's on the show. And the main actors I'm still in touch with, and they're still they're mostly in Joburg, still pursuing, and some of and a lot of the cast, and a lot of the crew too. The other thing on the other side is we had a lot of interns from Lincoln University, which may not have been around when you were there, Weej. You came a little bit later.
Doesn't ring a bell.
But we had internships and trained and worked with a lot of local Basotho to kind of, because there's not much of a film industry there. There's zero. So
Sure.
You build it.
I'm going to go to Susan Hyde from here in Charlotte, Vermont. Hi, Susan. So glad you're here. How many of the events that the group encountered in the film were traditional events? How many? I guess the question, to expand the question, how much of the Basotho cultural aspects that were shown in the movie were actually traditional, real stories or real events?
I think most of them are. the initiation school and things like the Tokolosi. Certainly, I combined the sort of traditional things, real sort of cultural elements with my own writing and my own, sort of my own take and my own artistic expression of it. But
Sure.
yeah. Many of those. I mean, you could ask me specific examples, but I think that,
Like for example, the burning of the hut when the woman
yes.
burned it. Is that a traditional?
No, I think that was something I made up.
Okay,
That the
okay.
Sangoma said that she had to burn her. I mean, I don't know, Weej, that was probably an early draft from a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if that comes to you, but I think that I made that up. That's just storytelling, just like
To keep the story. Sure,
yeah.
sure. No, that's fantastic. I am going to keep moving along with the questions. I see one here from Elisa Harvey. Elisa, thanks for joining us. How did you find the logistics of filming in Lesotho? How were you received while filming? Were people enthusiastic about seeing you, or on the contrary, were people rather concerned?
No, they were really enthusiastic. Everywhere, mostly. I mean, there was like almost no negativity. The government wasn't much help. I mean, that in South Africa, it's there wasn't much. There was no interference. There was no sort of help. Like we. But I was going to say, in South Africa, there's these rebates. You can get credits. The government. The Lesotho doesn't have
Sure.
anything like that. But no, it was received really well. I felt it was sort of just like reinforced my feelings of wonder and gratitude for the kindness of the Basotho people, because people were so psyched. And I didn't get any like pushback about being an American doing this. I think that I've said at a lot of festivals that I showed the film that I actually believe that sometimes an outsider looking in through the window of a culture can provide a really like a fresh view that someone doesn't have. And I even had some South Africans say to me, weirdly, it took an American to come and like tell a story that we're all kind of not don't feel or aren't connected to, because there's something when you're on the outside, you see the world like a child. It's so interesting. Yeah. And I was an anthropology student, so everything for me is just like soaking up the culture, soaking up the language, and I loved all that. And so I got but I had really tremendously positive feedback from everybody.
Yeah, I can attest, having lived there for almost 3 years. It's some of the nicest people, if not the nicest people in the world, are the Basotho. What about the logistics? The first part of that question, you filmed in a lot of remote areas, a lot of stuff on horseback.
It was difficult. I was just there.
How was that?
I was recently there. A few years back, I was back in Lesotho, and all the roads are paved now. It's just paved roads everywhere. I think you can go to Samankong. You can, and back then it was, getting to Samankong was just like, 2 out of our 4 or 5 vehicles would have flat tires, and it was legit. The logistics were very difficult. Getting the crew around, getting gear, but we were kind of a unit, and we just lived and camped and ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and papanama morojo together. And the rain, of course, we filmed it at a time of year that I predicted that the rains will have stopped in mid-March, January to mid-March, the big rains. Of course, the year we did it, it was just very rainy. It was like, logistics was a big problem. The whole crew got salmonella from chicken that had been sitting out, and everybody was sick for a couple days. And it was
right.
We got through it though. We got
you
through.
You could have made a movie about making the movie.
Yeah, but there was no one to film that because everybody was too tied up making the movie.
And was your crew a mix? Was it people from Lesotho, South Africans,
Yeah,
Americans, the
yeah.
whole nine yards?
There's three of us Americans, and probably about six South Africans, kind of the head of departments. So the cinematographer was the key grip, the gaffer, the sound recordist, the production designer. I think, and a few more were the South Africans, but then kind of every department. So if you think of the production designer, the art director was a Masutu who was learning how to do it, and the like wardrobe and things like that. We trained people, we figured it out on the spot. But
Sure.
there's no greater country than Lesotho though for improvising and getting things done. It's just like wonderfully spontaneity. I found worked well.
There's a question that just came in. I think it's on the same subject, so I might skip to that for just a sec. It's from Patrick, who's asking, how did your film crew prepare themselves to be culturally sensitized enough to effectively get this film accomplished? I mean, you do touch on lots of aspects of the Basotho culture, and I think most notably, it's certainly something that I was struck about when I first arrived 20 years ago in Lesotho. It's something that we work at often at the Lesotho Connection in St. Camillus, and that's the stigma around HIV and AIDS. So he doesn't, even though Patrick doesn't mention that, I'm curious to know how you addressed that question of, you're basically, I mean, HIV and AIDS was basically a character in this movie through this sister character. And did you, what did you, especially the foreigners, but also how did you approach the Basotho to prepare yourselves to get these sort of, some of these thorny subjects talked about?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't talked about much, like people, I mean, it was, I don't know about you, but I feel like through the years, I knew a lot of people who passed away, or
Yeah.
whose family died, and it was always sort of something else.
Tuberculosis.
Always,
yeah.
or drank something, or there was always sort of, I mean, that's kind of what I talk about in the film, like this person had leg problems or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I'm trying to recall, I don't think it was something that came up like that we talked about. I think that the script spoke for that. The script kind of did the work, and certainly in the premiere, when we showed it in Masira, we showed it around. There were a lot of discussions about that, and I think people appreciated the that it wasn't an AIDS movie per se, but it had a kind of, it had sort of a darker thread through it, which is about a girl who's dealing with a father, and who's stigmatized about this, and an ailing sister and things like that.
Sure. And what about maybe, and this very much ties into a question that just came in from Jim, also from Vermont. Hey, Jim. Basically, maybe not on HIV as well, but also on some of the lighter issues. You are a foreigner making a movie about Lesotho, and very much Lesotho culture was really wrapped into this movie. What was the response of the people of Lesotho when they viewed the film? You showed it in Masiru. You then did this road show where you were showing it around, and if anyone's interested, they can reach out to folks at the Lesotho Connection, and we can show still photos from Andrew's road show, which was amazing in 2014. I mean, what was the reaction of the Basotho people to the movie?
Oh, they loved it. I mean, that 2-week trip was one of the most magical periods of my life, where we went to the villages. We were really, really remote, way up in the mountain. Like the memory that sticks to me the most is in Mohotlong, way up in the mountains, an hour and 20 minutes from Mohotlong, just as remote, almost as remote as you can possibly get, and still be on a dirt track. We set up a huge inflatable movie screen, And, we came in, people were just cheering. It's so psyched we came back, because we said we're going to come back and show the movie. And then it was 3 years later. And, like villagers coming down from the mountains, and, a crowd of maybe 75 people sitting around watching the movie, having never had seen a movie before.
Yeah.
Most likely never have seen it. I mean, I don't know
On a
where
big
they had
screen.
seen a movie, and
Yeah.
people were psyched. They loved it. Overall, it was just really well received. Little criticisms here and there, like a couple of things I had to change. I changed some of the English. I needed the story to tell a couple different things, and a couple lines I wasn't perfectly true with on the English
translation.
the translations.
Got you.
Because I wanted it to say this, but it veered too far there. So I had to kind of just go a little bit like that, and people would sort of pick on me about that. But I think I'm most proud of the film that people have said that they felt they did not know an American made it.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And I can attest, you are my brother, so I'm obviously biased, but I keep in touch with Lesotho. A few years ago, I was fortunate enough to bring my family back to Lesotho, and people who had no idea who I was talk about the Forgotten Kingdom. And I would be like, oh, my brother actually made that movie. And it was kind of like, people thought I was joking. And I'd be like, no, it's true. Like, my brother made it. And it was really funny. And yeah, I mean, a lot of Lesotho, loved it, and loved that it was like a feature, almost like like a big, big epic movie, made in their own country.
Yeah.
A very quick question here from Jean, who's asking, why kingdom? Is Lesotho a monarchy?
Yes, it's called the Mountain Kingdom. It is the Kingdom of Lesotho.
Yeah.
So for me, the title was perfect, because it was about a character who kind of had sort of chosen to forget where he came from, and to go on that journey to remember it again, to bring it back. So
yep,
that's where the title.
I mean, just to put on my wonky political hat for a second, Lesotho is a constitutional monarchy, Gene. So, and I hope I'm getting this right, but basically it has, the power is invested in a king, and the king actually does have absolute power. And it's not like the UK. The king actually does yield quite a bit of that power. But there also is a prime minister. There is a parliamentarian system with the monarchy system. And Lesotho is a country which very sadly has known quite a few iterations of political violence over the last sort of 25 years. We have a question here from Kimberly, which goes more back, sorry for that slight digression, goes more back to the movie. This is actually a personal question to you, Andrew. What films and filmmakers influenced you while you were making this film?
I will answer that, but I absolutely also must answer the question about if I brought a turtle into the country.
I did not see that. I did not see that.
Did you bring a turtle into the country for the film? I'm not sure they're naturally in Lesotho, so I want to come back to that.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, I don't see you. You and I both have the chat, and there's a lot of questions. I've skipped over that one, so I'll let you stay on it. But let me repeat the one. I'm just trying to find the one. Sorry, from Elise. No, I asked that one. It was basically, and I apologize, I don't see the name of the individual. What films and filmmakers influenced you? That was the question.
Oh, yes. Oh God, I mean, so many. I think on this film, if you ever remember, I love the films of Nicholas Roeg. He's he made Walkabout, and Walkabout was such a strange and beautiful film. John Sayles. I mean, with this, it's like, that's such a hard question to answer, because it's like, what influenced me all the time, every day, or what influenced me for this film? And I think for this film, I was always a big John Sayles fan. He made a movie called Men with Guns, and it had like this fairy tale lyrical quality. That was a big influence. I saw that film. The book The Alchemist was a big influence for me on this particular film. But filmmakers, Peter Weir is one of my favorites. I mean, there's so many.
There's a real Western aspect to this movie. I mean, maybe it's the horses, but were you seeking to sort of, was it the countryside? I mean, you mentioned that in the very beginning. Did the countryside inspire you to make that? I mean, there's a couple shots that you really feel like you're watching an American Western. You're descending on horses, and there's the valley.
There needed to be an odyssey. I felt that I just, you begin a process. You think of Lesotho. What's storytelling is usually, one of the most typical things is a character comes in, an outsider comes in to the story, and you see the world through the eyes of an outsider. So that was the character of Joseph, whose Sotho name is Atang, and this outsider coming in from the big city and having this edge and this darkness, and the first thing he does is try to sell his dad's coffin to make some money. This is kind of a bad kid, and then having to going on this odyssey, and what better way to do it is to be led by a herd boy who on horseback through the mountains, and sort of one of the things when we were on the set, someone said to me, is this boy real? Is this herd boy, is he even real? And it kind of got me really excited. And I didn't write it. I wrote it for him to be real. And he actually had a name. I used to call him Cello. But then, when as the story sort of evolved, it became a really, I kind of fell in love with the idea of that he's not quite real, and he doesn't really speak to any other characters, and maybe he's just a figment of Atang's imagination. Add some sort of magic realism to the story.
That's interesting. There's a question here from Henry Bunting. He's in Vermont. Henry says he liked the funny bits. And I think, Henry, if you don't mind, I'm just going to extrapolate a little bit on your question. I mean, it's now been a number of years since you made this movie. I think you're coming on soon 10 years since at least 10 years since you started 10 years ago, and the release was just under 10 years. This movie was a significant part of your career. What do you hope people think about this film now? I mean, what do you hope people still take away? We've got a number of participants on the Zoom call. A number of these folks had never seen this film before. This was their first time being introduced to Lesotho. There's a number of people I spoke to before this event in which I was like, yeah, Lesotho, it's not Lesotho, it's Lesotho, and it's a real country. It's like this little place in Southern Africa, when you think about, you've moved on to other projects, but when you think about The Forgotten Kingdom, is there anything that you're hoping people still take away from the film?
I hope the film takes people to Lesotho, like takes them on this journey, but in the vessel of narrative storytelling, not like a documentary would, in a poetic way. I think it's all about characters, and about the characters that we meet, and for me, it was such a gift to be able to combine, this incredible location, this land, and in these towns, and even Masiru, in the hustle and bustle of Joburg, where the film starts, in Hillbrow, with characters that really a journey of a young man. It's like a coming of age story for a guy to kind of. I love the idea of people connecting because they love Lesotho, but I also love the idea of people just just feeling like it could be anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's a
Odyssey film.
story, it's a father-son story in many ways.
Yep. And it's a love story.
Yeah, and it's a love story.
Definitely a love story. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want, now we've slated, just for folks on the call, we've got a couple different, Andrew has the turtle question. I don't have it. We have a couple different chat groups and we've got 2 participant batches, but we still have about 50 folks on the call. And we've slated 45 minutes. So we have a few more questions to go, but what's the deal with the turtle? Are turtles native to Lesotho?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, so they are. It's an interesting question. One, because I'm kind of secretly an amateur herpetologist and I love reptiles. I definitely did not bring a turtle into the country. Tortoises, Lesotho they're technically speaking, they are extinct. Leopard tortoises are extinct in Lesotho. But I found one when we were out looking for kid actors. This is not the one that was in the movie. People have them as pets. So if you go around villages, you will find people that have drilled holes into the back. And these things live for, like 100 years. So they're still there. And people have, so the one that we used in the movie was someone's pet. But I did once create on the drive to Samankong against like 1 in a million. One was walking across the road. That was pretty wild. Yep.
I can say I never saw a turtle in my almost 3 years in Lesotho. Yeah. So you were a lucky man. We have another question here. You've touched on it a little bit, but I think it's interesting, which is, this question saying the actors were not this person spent time in Lesotho. Yep. And she's saying, this was how I remember, like everything about this movie was how I remember Lesotho was. And this wasn't glammed up, this wasn't there were not cultural shifts made to make it sort of a glammy Hollywood production. Was this an intentional sort of decision of yours to make it a strictly cultural, or to the best of your ability, try to respect the cultural sort of parameters? Or was this just something that just kind of came out in the wash with the movie?
Oh, no, I mean, I think it was just like, there was no point in making the movie if it wasn't completely authentic and, like in Sesotho, like I was never gonna not make it.
Well, that was another question we had, which was another question on that was how on earth did you, a lot of movies, as everyone on the call I'm sure knows, a lot of movies are made sort of about an African country or about a country, and then they're just made in English. And the people, sometimes they have these sort of labored sort of African accents in English.
Yeah, but this is different. This wasn't like Hotel Rwanda or something. This was a small, little story about, this wasn't, I knew it was going to be, I knew it was like, just totally lean into that direction and completely make it a story that Lesotho will be proud of. And, I mean, there are little cultural things that that I definitely that I wasn't correct on and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And, but for the most part, I did a ton of research. One of the benefits is that took me like years to get the film made. So I started, my first trip was in 2006. And then I got an option, like a company in New York, a production company in New York, basically bought the rights, and we were going to make the movie, and the money fell through. But within the money, I did another trip to Lesotho, and then another. So by the time the film was made, I had been there so much, and like every time I go, I would do table reads with the script, and I would talk to. I had a lot of Lesotho friends, and I would be like, tell me about these people, like. Is this authentic? Pick it apart, so sure. That was the most enjoyable part, is to feel like I had, to feel like I was doing something original, like as an American, like doing something that's like authentic and original versus like just another junky movie.
Sure. Yeah. It definitely comes off as original. There's a quick question here before I get to another one to you. Seamus would like me, or I can pass it to you, to say hello and goodbye in Sesotho. So Seamus, you say Dumela is hello, and then goodbye is a little tricky. There's no literal translation for goodbye. You would say either stay well or go well. So stay well would be Salahankle, and go well, Andrew.
Samaya Hankle.
Samaya Hankle. There you go. We have a question. There's look, as I said, we slated 45 minutes. I'll ask the remaining questions. If anyone has any other questions, they can certainly throw them in. But it's great to see so many questions here. There's an anonymous question here, referring back when you were talking about Lebo Hong, who played the child. This person's just saying how clever and funny he was, and he or she is curious to know why you decided to make really the sort of wise figure in the film. Going back to this Odyssey question, why did you decide to make this sort of character who's going to impart wisdom, a child? What was your inspiration for that?
Oh, I don't know. I think children, it just seems iconic. It seems sort of like, it seems like, I don't know. I feel like I keep doing that in every movie I make.
The one you're working on now. Yeah.
A little bit. Well, that's a much darker, different story. But yeah, I don't know. I heard Boys in Lesotho. It just was a match. It just felt exactly right.
Sure. He definitely is the wisdom imparting character in the film.
And he was an orphan, which the actual boy was an orphan, and it was so I don't know. He sort of just felt, everything just felt right with that kid. And the film, the U.S. Embassy ended up paying for him to go to, his school fees to finish school. Basically from the film. The U.S. Embassy was also a big supporter. The State Department gave us a grant, and they got on board with helping him finish his schooling. So that was awesome. It was really, it's like incredibly satisfying to have that one thing. Oh, well, that boy, got to go to school, got to go to university.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's now got a career. He's an actor. Yep. It's fantastic. Yep. It's fantastic. On that, we have a message from Kim asking, we touched on it, what's your next project?
Oh, I'm just finished like 2 weeks ago directing a movie here in Massachusetts. It's a psychological thriller. It's sort of a horror movie, actually. It's really technically it's a psychological horror about an arborist and her son, who it's called The Woundwood. So you can look it up, although it doesn't exist anywhere because we just finished it. And
there's an Instagram though.
There is an Instagram, and
I follow that. Yeah.
I'm editing that film now, and it's a really cool story.
I have some housekeeping to do in just a moment, but Chris, we'll get to the last question. It's a very specific question, but Chris, I don't want to ignore you. It just came in. How much was the Shepherd Boy paid? I'm assuming as an actor. It's an interesting question. I mean, I know it's been a number of years, but what was the sort of compensation for the actors? I
don't remember the number, but I know they were paid, very well. Like we paid them I don't know, maybe $5,000 or $7,000. I want to say, for him, and the South Africans maybe had to get paid a bit more. We had a tutor with him. I don't remember if that was the rule or we just did it like we had a tutor. Well, he also was an orphan, so he wasn't going to come. He needed a chaperone, so he came with we hired a woman to kind of be with him and be his tutor, and then so I don't have the number of what he was paid, but I
got you.
I know it was fair, and it was pretty good for him. pretty good for his situation. Yeah.
Great. All right. I want to thank everyone. A couple people have dropped off, but almost everyone stayed on. I do want to say we're doing an online auction, and I was told to announce the raffle winner for the Lesotho blanket. So those beautiful blankets you see in the film. We were raffling one tonight. We had a number of tickets sold, and Emily Smith, I don't know if you're on this, but Emily Smith is the winner. So Emily, congratulations, and we'll follow up with how you can get that. Also, the online auction is still open for a couple hours. It's going to end around 9 p.m. EST, so you can still make either a donation to the Lesotho Connection, or you can jump online and see the auction at the lesothoconnection.org. As I stated before, it's 501c3. We do have some staff in Lesotho, but all of us here in the States completely doing this on a volunteer basis. It's a really good cause, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on the board, and we can happily walk you through how the Lesotho Connection is run. Andrew, my brother, I'd like to thank you so much for taking some of your time on a Sunday night. I want to thank everyone. Getting a lot of thank yous rolling in. So thank you for everyone who's participated tonight, who chose to lean in and learn a lot more about Lesotho, learn about how this movie was made. I think it's a real tribute to the Forgotten Kingdom that almost 10 years later, it can be used as a means of advocacy, of a means of education. It's a really special movie. I hope we at the Lesotho Connection will continue to use this as a way of sort of drumming up support for our personal cause, which is the Lesotho Connection in St. Camilla's House, the St. Camilla's Center. So thank you so much, Andrew, for joining. And we are definitely looking forward to the Woundwood, although it's a bit scarier. It's a bit of a more scary. I was actually at the script read through for everyone on the call, and it actually kind of gave me nightmares that night. So it's not, it's just FYI. But Andrew, thank you again for taking time and for explaining how you made this movie. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, and thank you everyone. And please go to the website if you can. Thank you.